Every face oil has a personality. And after trying more than a dozen of them myself, as well as researching multiple dozens of them, I have found that these differences really come down to the fatty acid content of the oil. So in this video, what I want to do is break down for you what these fatty acids do in the oil, as well as what they do in our skin, specifically when it comes to our sebum, right? The natural oil that the body produces. Okay, because once you understand fatty acids, you can save yourself a whole lot of time in terms of trial and error, buying lots of different oils. You can be more targeted because you've kind of done your research ahead of time and you know what to look for as you go about shopping for face oil. So I'm going to break it all down in this video. I'm also going to share with you a list of oils that I've put together, and for each of them I've broken down the general absorption rate as well as the fatty acid content of them. And I have all of this in an article that's on my blog, so I'm just going to head over to my computer so that we can walk through this together. All right, so we are on my blog, and this is the article that I've put together for you: Carrier Oils by Skin Type, How to Choose, and a Complete List. So there's lots of different pieces of information in here for you. One of the things I cover is just a suggested list of oils that will work for all skin types. And then I also have a breakdown of oils for different skin types. So specifically acne-prone skin, dry and mature skin, sensitive skin, as well as oily skin. Okay, so you can go through that on your own time. But what I want to focus on is this piece here where I give you the list of carrier oils and I talk about the fatty acids. So there are two main categories of fatty acids. We have essential and non-essential. Now, what's the difference? So starting off with the essential fatty acids, fatty acids, these are the ones that we have to get from an external source. So we get them through our food. We can get them from oils that we apply topically because the body does not make these. So we must get them from an external source. And in this category of essential fatty acids, there are two main types. There are omega-3s and omega-6s. Now, in these, you will often hear talk of two of them, right? So you'll hear a lot of mention about linoleic acid. So this is an omega-3. And you also hear a lot of mention of linoleic acid. So whether you're reading articles, books, or maybe even research on skincare and on oils, typically hear both of these mentioned quite often. The main thing with essential fatty acids is that they support the overall look and feel of the skin. If we focus, for example, just on the linoleic acid, which is the omega-6, that one is known for playing an essential role in maintaining the health of skin barrier. Okay, and we know that the skin barrier, when that is not intact, when that is not in good health, all kinds of skin issues can pop up. In addition, linoleic acid is also a main component of ceramides. You've probably also heard about ceramides. You're probably using some products right now that have ceramides in them. Ceramides protect our skin from the environment, and they also help to maintain moisture and suppleness of our skin. Okay, so linoleic acid is a component of those ceramides. And then lastly, essential fatty acids can also be quite soothing to inflamed skin. There is actually some research showing that people who have inflammatory skin conditions tend to produce sebum that is low in linoleic acid. Okay, so the idea is that based on that research, using oils or anything that contains this essential fatty acid could potentially help with those inflammatory skin conditions. Right, so that's the essential fatty acid part. Now let's talk about the non-essential fatty acids. So these are fatty acids that the body is able to make on its own. So technically speaking, we don't have to get them from external sources, or don't have to rely on external sources only. Now, in the category of non-essential fatty acids, you will find omega-7s and omega-9s. Omega 9s are more abundant, more common, and the two that often are talked about are oleic acid and eicosenoic acid. I'll talk about both again in a moment. As for omega 7s, there are less foods or things in nature that actually contain omega 7. One item that contains a high amount of this fatty acid, though, is sea buckthorn oil. Happens to also be one of my all-time favorite oils. I love the scent, love the color, very nourishing. But and the other thing too that's interesting about omega 7s is that I found an article from Dr. Andrew Weil. If you're not familiar with him, he's one of the pioneers when it comes to alternative health and holistic healing. He's been at this for decades. And Dr. Weil, in one of his articles, talked about the fact that when it comes to omega 7s, there seems to be a lot more benefit from using it topically than from ingesting it, which is quite different from all of the other omega fatty acids out there, where typically, we see a lot of benefits from consuming it internally, right? So just a side note when it comes to that. Now, continuing on with the non-essential fatty acids, there's also oleic acid, which is an omega 9. And what this fatty acid does is one of the properties is that it tends to make oils feel heavier and is generally regarded as being more suitable for dry skin. Okay. Now, again, this is not a hard and fast rule. Like, this is just a general sort of tendency of this fatty acid, but there are plenty of oils out there that are high in oleic acid that are not necessarily heavy or don't feel overly greasy. So do keep that in mind, that this is not a 100% rule. Lastly, eicosenoic acid, so omega 9. This is one that is naturally present in our sebum. It comprises about 25% of our sebum, so quite significant. And you will see that as you go through this article where I have a table of oils, you will see that one of the oils that is quite high in eicosenoic is jojoba oil, right? We often hear about use jojoba because it is is quite similar to your sebum. This is one of the main reasons why it's quite close to our sebums, because it has this fatty acid that is a natural component of our sebum. So that is the overview of your essential and non-essential fatty acids. Now, as you choose your oils, besides thinking about the fatty acid component, the other thing to think about is the absorption rate. Okay. Um, Potentially, like I have a couple of oils, some of which are heavier, some of which are lighter. Definitely prefer to use the lighter ones during the daytime. If I was going to, for some reason, use something like castor oil, for example, I would use that in the evening if I wanted to give my skin some sort of special treatment. So you do want to still keep in mind the absorption rate and the heaviness of these oils. And typically, the heavier the oil, the slower it absorbs. Like, for the most part, that rule is pretty reliable. You will hardly find an oil that's lightweight that is very, very slow to absorb. So, with that said, I have a table here that gives you an overview of various oils. Not every oil that you can find, but a lot of them. As I mentioned at the top of the video, I have used at least a dozen different oils, just trying out. I've narrowed all of that down to the ones that I buy on a regular basis. But when I started out with face oils, I definitely did a lot of trial and error. And because I like to geek out on things, I spent a lot of time reading research articles and papers to understand a little bit more of the science. So I've put all that information here. You can refer to this anytime. I will put a link to this article in the video description. So for this table, you have the oil, you have the suggested skin types, and then you also have the properties. So in the properties, it's a breakdown of the fatty acid components, as well as the weight and the absorption rate. Some of these oils I have used, so anyone that I've used, the absorption rate is purely based on my experience. In some other cases, I've just done research online to see what others are saying about these oils. And I will say that overall, it's not every oil. People don't have the same opinion about one oil. So one person will say this is slow to absorb. Another source might say this is medium absorption. So I've just kind of taken an average of what I've seen mentioned most often for every oil. But if we start off with almond oil, for example, which is one that I have used and continue to use, I use that on my body daily. I will use it on my face from time to time. I personally find it to be heavier, and I say heavier because I'm comparing it to my other staple, which is rosehip oil. Rosehip is very, very lightweight and absorbs quickly. Almond is slower, but still very nourishing oil. Another oil that is quite pleasant, if you've never tried it, is apricot kernel oil. I highly recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised when I tried it. I found it to be very lightweight, it absorbs quickly, very pleasant. And this is one that's interesting because it's high in oleic acid, right? And that's the fatty acid that I said at the top. From a scientific perspective, is said to sometimes make oils feel heavier. But in the case of apricot kernel, I did not find it to be heavy at all. So if you're looking for something lightweight, that's a good one to go with. Argan oil, another option. I want to call out a few other oils on this list. So even in primrose, that is one oil that can be quite helpful. I personally did not enjoy it because of the scent. I didn't find the scent to be very pleasant. I also thought it was on the heavier side and slower to absorb. But there are definitely a lot of people who benefit significantly from it. You know, it's very high in linoleic acid. So that is the one where I said people who have inflammatory skin conditions tend to produce sebum that is low in linoleic. So 70 to 74% linoleic acid in general. So it could be quite nutritive, quite nourishing, and potentially quite healing for somebody who has inflammatory skin conditions. But just keep in mind that it is, from my experience, a heavier oil. Hemp seed oil, another good oil, heavier, can have a little bit of a strong scent, but hemp is very, very nourishing. So another one to consider trying. We've got jojoba oil, which has 73% eicosenoic acid, so very the one that's most said to be similar to our sebum. Another oil that is not often talked about, and I don't know why, is meadow foam seed oil. So this one has 63% eicosenoic acid. So very, just a 10% difference with jojoba, right? So this would be one that I personally would say, based on that concentration of that fatty acid, that is could be another option for something that is similar to sebum. And what I like about this oil is that it's just surprising because when you first pour it out, it's viscous. And if you don't pay too much attention, you might think, oh, this is going to be as heavy, it's as viscous as castor. It only looks that way, but it does not feel heavy. It is not sticky. It is actually very light. It feels really silky. It was just everything about it was not what I expected, and doesn't really have a scent. So definitely, I would say if you want to just experiment with something that's a little bit different that isn't talked about often, meadow foam might be something pleasant for you to explore. So there's lots of different oils in this list. I also have suggestions at the bottom of the article for where to buy these oils, right? So go ahead and use this as your resource. And if you have any questions at all about these oils, about this topic of face oils in general, feel free to share in the comment section below. And if you have any experience also with these oils, share your feedback because that might be helpful to somebody else who is getting started with oils or who has questions about a specific oil. All right. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Share this, spread the word. Let's all get on this face oil bandwagon because I do think that they are just you guys know that I love any opportunity to nourish ourselves in and out is just for me a top priority, and so that's one of the reasons why I love face oils is because as long as they've been extracted right in a clean way with no like crazy chemicals in them, they really are food for skin in that way, right? They're topical food, so very, very nourishing. So I look forward to seeing you on the next one, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.